think what social media does is you have a good following and you have attractive photos. It definitely brings people into your business. Now, it most certainly won't keep them there.
Today I am chatting with Jules Mak. Jules is one of the up-and-coming restaurant owners in Dublin who owns Mak at D6, a modern Chinese restaurant, and also recently opened up a very exciting new restaurant called Hush, which serves sandwiches during the day, burgers at night, and amazing freshly baked cookies all day long. If you haven't already done so, click the subscribe button to get brand new content directly to your feed every single week. Right, Jules, it's thanks a million for joining me on the podcast. It's great to get to chat to you.
No worries at all. Thanks for having me.
Nice one. So we let's start as I do with most of my guests on the kind of the background, right? Before I suppose the people in the food scene kind of heard of Jules. Give me a rundown of your background.
So my dad had a restaurant, Chinese restaurant in Donnybrook, and grew up in there. So that was my first kind of chefing job. So I would have started there when I was 16. Started as a KP, worked my way up to commis chef, and then ended up cooking. So did a couple of years there, and then moved to another restaurant called Roast in Ballsbridge. So that was a bit of a different for me because I only knew Chinese cooking really. So nice to get a bit of a change. So straight after school though, firstly I actually did culinary arts in college, which didn't last too long to be honest. I dropped out after about 3 months, and then just went straight away working with my dad. So yeah, that was the start of it. And then 24, skipping ahead, we walking through Ranelagh, saw this unit, the old Extravision it was, and it was a lovely big shop front, big windows, and I was kind of looking in the window and I was thinking, geez, we could put a kitchen there, a bar there, and yeah, and that was the start of it. We just rang the agent and got a deal done and moved in.
Very good. And we'll get into all that in a second. Just going back there to your upbringing, I suppose you were saying your father Rodney had a Chinese restaurant and
Yeah.
business. I suppose what kind of things growing up in that, like, would you put, like, did you learn a lot in that of growing up in that business, and what kind of things did you say you really learned the most?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I always loved cooking. So, from a young age, when I was, even 8, 9, I was always cooking. I remember cooking eggs and stuff, and I thought I was amazing. So that was the kind of start of it. But in the restaurant, yeah, like we would have eaten there every week, so you grow up in that environment. So you kind of know nothing else really, your dad does it as his job. So it was kind of, I loved cooking. So it only felt natural to go into that environment. Uh, so yeah, so kicking on ahead and working in there, it was a real eye opener. I remember thinking like even little things like the spring rolls getting done. I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. So yeah, it was a bit of a mad one, but it's great experience though. Great to have there.
Yeah, for sure. And then let's go to as you were saying, extra vision. Was it extra vision? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You came across an extra vision. You said I'd love to put a restaurant in there. So talk me through that whole process from that thought to kind of
Yeah.
the whole job.
So yeah, I always wanted my own restaurant. I knew it from quite an early age, to be honest. And I was working in my dad's place, and I wanted to. Ranelagh was only up the road. It was 5 minutes up the road from us. So, and it was always a real buzzy spot. Even back 8 years ago, it was the real place to be. It had pubs, restaurants. So, we did a bit of looking around. We were walking up and down the strip, see if there was any units going, and I walked by this Ranelagh unit, the old Extravision.
Yeah.
And growing up in my dad's restaurant, it was a great restaurant, but it was quite a dark Chinese restaurant. Anywhere
Yeah.
you probably know yourself, the old-fashioned kind of Chinese
Yes.
restaurants, very little windows, always quite dark interiors. So I always wanted to change that and have this lovely, bright Asian restaurant. So our shop front here, it goes like it's about 13 meters, and all windows. So I looked in, and again, as I said, it was complete blank canvas. So I kind of pictured where a kitchen would be, a bar would be, and yeah, we just rang the agent. And back in the day, 2012, it was kind of the tail end of the recession. So it was a little bit easier to kind of get a hold of a landlord, and you weren't up bidding against loads of people, you know.
Yeah.
So the deal got done pretty swiftly.
Very good. And that, of course, is Mac, your restaurant Mac at D6.
Yeah, Mac at D6.
Yeah, and just I suppose as a slight aside there, you were mentioning about kind of you want to kind of do something different than the traditional to an extent. Like
Yeah.
obviously Chinese restaurants, I suppose the takeaway Chinese restaurant that a lot of us would know, um, has maybe I don't know a little bit of bad reputation. But
Yeah, yeah.
what's your viewpoint on that, and what did you kind of want to do differently than what was done before?
Yeah, you're dead right. It did get a bit of a bad name, I think, for a while. I think the Thai cuisine kind of came in, and it was
Yes,
this kind
yeah.
of cool, healthy alternative. So, we grew up as kids. Our dad would bring us down to these places in Parnell Street, these really old-fashioned Chinese restaurants, and we'd get dim sum and stuff. And I was always thinking, like, this food is so good, yet it's full of Chinese people in here, you know, and Irish people would never be in any of these places. So I kind of wanted to bring that and make Asian cuisine like a new age kind of style. So, you know, but keeping to its authenticness, I suppose, you know. So we
Yeah.
focus a lot on dim sum, but we wanted to have a cool little cocktail bar as well. So, you know, we invested in a license, and we have an extensive cocktail menu. So we wanted this buzzy, cool atmosphere. The style of cuisine, it's, you know, it's effectively Asian tapas. You know, it's great
Okay.
to share. So that's what we wanted to focus on. Bringing a kind of new age, cool environment to a Chinese restaurant.
Nice. And do you think we're at like would you say you're at kind of the early stages? Like, is there still great potential for that like the Chinese restaurant development, or like where do you think you're at there, even in terms of Dublin, uh, in terms of that?
Yeah, well, we've kind of, you know, with your restaurant, you always have to kind of move with the times, I think, a little bit. Even our first year, we did the place up, and I remember thinking, Jesus, the coolest looking place ever. After about 10 months, I was like, okay, we need to do a refurb here. I hate the bar. I hate this. So it's just kind of about moving with the times on it, and staying relevant. We're in such a good location, it's such a great community, Ranla. You know, so the locals we have is support we've had off them over the last 8 years has been incredible. So blessed in that sense.
Nice. And going from obviously growing up with your father owning a restaurant and then
Mm.
becoming a restaurant owner yourself, I
Mm.
suppose what was that like? Was that a big learning curve, and what were kind of the main standout things that I suppose you learned from that?
Yeah, it was great. You know, we opened, as I said, opened up Mac 8 years ago, and having my dad was here. My dad lives in Malaysia now at the moment, but for the first 8 months of Mac, he was around, which had so many pros and cons. You know, it was great to have somebody who's been in the industry for, you know, 25 odd years
Yeah.
helping you through little things, because I was 24 at the time, so it was a bit of a daunting project, to be honest. But you're younger, you're a bit more fearless, so you don't think too much. So having him there, he definitely helped out and guided me through certain areas of the restaurant. Having said that, when it's established and open, you know, you have your own vision of what you want to do, and he kind of still has his vision a little bit,
Yes. Yeah.
and you kind of clash heads
Uh-huh.
almost. So as I said, pros and cons of it all. Working with family can be tricky, but if I could go back and change it, no, I think definitely having them there helps.
Right, very good. And without delaying on this point too much, because I have loads to talk to you about, but
Yeah.
I suppose 8 years in business, having a look at kind of this year and going back to March 2020, would you say that this has been your hardest time in business?
Um, yeah, like it's definitely up there. Don't know if it's the hardest such. It's definitely the most daunting and trickiest. You kind of have to reinvent the restaurant almost, but like year one was probably the hardest. You know, you're trying to find your feet, cash flow's tight, So it's completely different, but yeah, definitely the trickiest. It's about keeping your head above water, I think, and coming out of this okay.
Yeah, and you have come out of it okay, or I suppose, at least from the outset, right? You mentioned it there right at the beginning.
Yeah.
You actually expanded during the height of
Mm.
the pandemic, and you opened up
Yeah, yeah,
Hush, which I'm
yeah.
very interested to talk to you about. So, kind of give me the kind of rundown of how that came about and the process of opening it.
Hush. So it kind of like we were always looking for another restaurant, you know. So it didn't just kind of come out of the blue. When Mac with the first lockdown, we had to obviously restrict our hours here. We were operating as just a takeaway, and to keep the chefs motivated, keep them a bit interested, we decided to do these test kitchens on a Tuesday, where every week we'd pick a new cuisine, anything we wanted to do, and it was a nice little creative outlet for myself and the chefs to come up with something ridiculous and sell it out of the Chinese restaurant. So the first thing we did were these burgers, which I've always kind of, you know, I love making a burger at home, and we were making them out
Yeah,
of Mac, posting them on Instagram, and kind of you had to pre-order. So the first night we did them, we sold I think 110 burgers. We were like, "Geez,
wow.
this is madness! Like, I made more tonight on burgers than I would probably selling Chinese food." So again, the next week we did burgers again. Then we did like tacos. We changed things, but the burgers were always one that were selling out like the night before. I'd post it, and within probably 30 minutes they'd all sell out. So
Wow.
we kind of got thinking of that. And then I was thinking, geez, well, I just kind of sanction off a bit of a section and just do
Yeah.
burgers all the time and not tell people where we're doing it from, kind of like this ghost kitchen style.
Yes, yes, yes.
So that's kind of where the name Hush came from. The plan was to have this secret burger joint, and it was all kind of on the hush. You know, we didn't want people really knowing it was out of a Chinese restaurant, but they just knew they could get this amazing burger from somewhere.
Yeah.
So fast forward a few months, looking around at a few units, just always interested in keeping my eyes open for an opportunity. And myself and my partner in Hush, Peter, stumbled across the unit in Rathmines, and just the layout of it, the window, everything was so, I suppose, COVID friendly in terms of we had a big window there. It was easy
Yeah.
to sell out of. So again, just saw the unit, went for it, and that's how Hush came about.
And did you get much? I suppose, like, was there much? Like at that time, it was a crazy time to go opening a restaurant. I'm sure you must have got a lot of kind of people saying you're mad, Jules. Or did you get a lot of that?
Yeah. There definitely was, because we actually like we signed the lease in June, which we were still currently in a lockdown. So
Yeah,
yeah, well, it definitely was a bit mad. And looking back, yeah, it's not probably not the smartest move, but you know, you kind of just strike while the iron's hot a bit. You know, we saw a great unit, saw a great opportunity. You know, to be honest, I thought we'd be open by now, looking back then, but we're kind of wrong there. But
yeah,
uh, you got to just go with it. Like we believed in the product. We did a good bit of work on the branding, the marketing. So we knew we had something good. And again, you kind of just back yourself in that situation and go for it.
very good. And where did the? I'd love to get your opinion on this, because I'm very interested in kind of, I suppose, the like that the concept of Hush. I think it's a fantastic concept. Like,
Yeah.
the kind of the Jacqueline Hyde concept that doesn't really work too well, where it's kind of like you'll see it occasionally where you have kind of one restaurant during the day and then a completely separate restaurant during the night.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I really like about your concept, and I'd love to get your opinion on this, which is kind of the idea. A lot of restaurants I work with will have like they're kind of I suppose restricted to their opening hours, right? So a sandwich restaurant
Mm,
very often is kind of just a lot of sales during the day, and then after 4 or 5, people don't really want it. And then
yeah.
burgers,
Yeah.
on the flip side, are kind of more evening meals. So is
Yeah.
that was that part of the thinking, like that you kind of in theory you'll have kind of sales throughout the day, throughout the both
Mm.
aspects?
Yeah, definitely. We looked at the unit in Rathmines, and it's high footfall there all day long. There's people walking by, whether it's day or night. So we knew that there was business there. You're in an area where there are cafes and there are restaurants. So I suppose our theory was, why not do both? If we have a good product, I believe we can do both.
Okay.
So we I suppose COVID kind of helped the thing as well. You're kind of trying to maximize your unit also,
Yeah,
and how can you make the most out of, like, you pay rent all day? Why not try
of course.
trade all
Yeah,
day? So, now it's different in Mac. We're an evening spot, so you kind of have to know what you are. But
yes,
with casual food, it's sandwiches, it's burgers done well. We just saw a market there for it, and uh, there's a bit of luck involved, I suppose, as well, that people just buy into it a bit as well. So yeah, the plan was always to maximize the unit, trade as much as we can, open, like, we open at 8 o'clock in the morning for coffees. Sandwiches
yeah.
start at 11 to 4. We have a little break and we just sell coffees and cookies, and then 5:30 we're open for burgers until 10 o'clock, and that's 7 days a week.
Wow.
So yeah, we wanted it to stand out and look a bit different from the rest.
Very good. And do you think that's very important? Because you know, this idea of like obviously having a USP, and where where I see a lot of people make mistakes is they just try to be too many things to all people, right? And they,
Mm,
as opposed to focusing on one thing. Like, is that
mm.
important to you that you focus on one thing? And what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think people think into that a little bit too much of, we need to focus on one thing. We can only do burgers, or we can only do sandwich, or Chinese, But Hush was created through like a test kitchen in a Chinese restaurant, So it's opened itself to be this kind of creative outlet for food. So I
Yeah,
kind of feel we can, push the boundaries a little bit. We can do sandwiches, we can do burgers, if you wanted to do, like, we sell cookies, we have coffees. So we do a lot of specials. So I don't think, you necessarily need to focus so much on one thing. I just think
yeah.
you need to focus on doing whatever you're doing correct,
Right, very good.
So don't fear of deviating too much away from, one thing, but just make sure whatever you do is good.
Yeah, very good. And your social media for well, definitely for from Hush is very impressive,
Mm.
right? And it's definitely like it's caused there's a lot of it caused a lot of interest, right? And this whole kind of this Instagrammable world we live in now. I'd love to get your opinion on, I suppose, social media and
Yeah.
how important that is for, like, is that really important element of the business?
Yeah, I think it is quite important, and people can say it's not, but I think what social media does is, if you have a good following and you have attractive photos, it definitely brings people into your business. Now, it most certainly won't keep them there. You
Yeah.
then have to provide a good product, but it's an amazing outlet for letting people know that you have a new special, what you're doing. Shows a bit of personality behind the restaurant, and that's attractive to customers. I think they want to see how you prep things, how you work, how you operate. And as I said, it definitely gets them in the door, and then it's up to you to keep them there as a returning customer, by serving good food.
Very good. And let's and I really appreciate your time, Jules. But we'll wrap up in a few because I know you have to run.
Yeah.
Looking at I suppose the growth plan going forward, I'd love to hear what's the
Mm,
plan, because obviously you have Mac, and you took your time between Mac and Hush. There was a big
mm.
gap. So what's the plan going forward?
Plan going forward, I think what we'd like to do is, we'll definitely look to expand Hush. I think, um, where, we don't know yet, but we are shopping around, having a little look. But I think the next thing will definitely probably be Hush again,
Very good.
in another location. I think it's definitely a market for Mac takeaways. If I was to give you like a 5-year plan,
Yeah.
I'd say we'll have another Hush, like a Mac takeaway, and we'll have another restaurant in with the concept that we're working on. So
Very good, very good.
yeah.
That's very exciting. Hush, quick one there for you. On You'll open up another or the plan is to have another Hush and a Mac. Just, I'd be very interested in kind of looking at concepts. And one of the kind of first things I often talk to my clients about would be kind of like scalability, right? Right from the
Mm.
outset. And just looking at your two places, Hush and Mac, would you see one being more scalable than the other?
Um, yeah, I think Mac is a bit more of a higher end restaurant. It's very much a dining experience, which we've filtered into this new takeaway kind of world with the lockdown. So Hush is probably more scalable in terms of how quick we could probably set one up. Again, the concept could be similar. We don't need a massive unit. We have a big unit in Rathmine, so we can do a lot of prep there and deliver it out. So, yeah, I would say Hush is definitely more scalable, just based on the nature of the food. You know, we'd have customers coming in, and they could be in 3 times a week getting a sandwich, whereas Mac, you're just going to get them probably in once a week, maybe twice at best. You know, so sandwiches and burgers are it's easier for people to grab and go. You know, so I think it's definitely more scalable.
Very good. And would you ever see, I suppose, like looking at Ireland as a whole? Because obviously, a lot of people would look at Dublin, right? And there's been a lot of kind of commentary on it the last couple of years with the high rents and the rates, and how some people say Dublin is just closed for business almost. Do you have you ever are you looking, or do you ever think about opening something outside of Dublin?
Yeah, we haven't looked now, but definitely thought of it. You know, it's yeah, like we have maybe one day.
Very good. And I might be kind of catching off guard here a little bit, but I think it's a question that I'm always interested in asking people, which is, and you touched on it there about kind of a new restaurant, but I suppose, is there any other concept that, like, do you ever look at it? Is there any other restaurant, even if you want to make it a little bit easier, that you'd look at, right? And you'd say, "Feck, I wish I had done that concept, right?"
Mm. Any other restaurants? No, again, it's kind of back to my point before. You know, you take little bits of inspiration from every restaurant. You know, I'd look at one restaurant and I might like how it looks, but and then I look at another restaurant and might like their food. You know, and you kind of join them together. So no, there wouldn't be any in particular restaurant which I'd be like, damn, I wish I did that.
Yeah.
But definitely with units, you know, there's definitely units out there which I've seen people take, and I've been like, damn, I wish I got that. You know. But no, never with anyone's restaurant as such, to be honest.
Very good. Okay, that's interesting. And let's finish up on this one, Jules. Obviously, COVID 2020, crazy year. Let's go post-COVID. When you're looking at the industry, do you, and even in terms of your own kind of business strategy going forward, do you see a change in the industry, or how do you see that going?
I think the change has happened already, to be honest, and I think we're probably hopefully coming out of it soon. Like, you've seen people change. You've seen fine dining restaurants selling meal kits and cocktails. You know, so I think it has changed. I think the takeaway thing has just kicked off. You know, everyone's trying to utilize their business as much as they can, whether it's takeaways or meal kits. So I think it has changed. But I think it'll go back, though. You know, we've seen glimpses of it when the restaurants have opened up for a few weeks and they're back full. And I think people are craving that dining experience now. They've been eating takeaways for the last year nearly. So I think it'll be great. I think it'll be really interesting because people have learned so much of what to do with their business, and they've got so creative, restaurants, with, as I said, meal kits, cocktail kits, takeaways and stuff. So I think it'll be interesting. But I think if we can all keep our head above water here and stay afloat for the next few months, I think it'll be okay.
Lovely. I think that's as good a place to leave it, Jules. And thanks a million for joining me. I'm very much looking forward to seeing kind of the progression with Hush, and hopefully I get you on the podcast again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Cheers, Jules. Talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks for watching the Business of Restaurants podcast with me, Evan O'Callaghan. For new episodes every single week, subscribe below.